I want to talk today about the guys who get the Philippines wrong. Not the ones who went out for a holiday and went home again. Not the ones who tried it for a year and decided it wasn't for them. The other ones. The ones who arrived at 58 with what they thought was a suitable pension and a plan to spend the rest of their lives in the country. The ones who did all the things the YouTube videos told them to do. Married the girl, built the house, closed the accounts back at home, burned the bridges, and settled in for the long stretch. And who are now, 10 or 15 years later, sitting in a condo in Angeles or Cebu or Manila or wherever they are with almost no money left, a wife who stopped pretending to care, no way home and no way forward. I've met these men, I've had drinks with them when I've been in the Philippines, and I share many of their stories, and I find that the pattern is so familiar, it's almost like reading the same book with a different name on the cover. So today I want to walk you through that pattern, what happens, why it happens, why it's so much worse in the Philippines than anywhere else in Southeast Asia, and what you need to think about, honestly, before you commit to a country that has a very specific way of stripping foreign men of everything they arrived with. Let me tell you about somebody I know. He went out in the early 2010s, 59 years old at the time, divorced, 2 grown children back in the UK, who he saw twice a year on trips home. He had a decent pension, paid off house he sold before he went, and enough savings to buy a modest condo in Manila outright. He met a Filipina. She was in her early 30s, 2 children from a previous relationship. He fell in love, or so he thought he did, and within 18 months of arriving in the country, he'd married her, moved her and her children into his condo and taken on a monthly financial contribution to her extended family in Cebu province, and started sending one of her nephews to college. He was happy, he told me, at around year 3 of the arrangement. That had never been happier in his life at the time. Fast forward to today, he's 72, the condo is in her name, because at some point during the marriage he was persuaded that that was the sensible thing to do, and the transfer, to put it politely, was effected without him fully understanding what he was signing. His pension is being drawn down a lot faster than he anticipated, because the family obligations have grown rather than shrunk over the years. The wife has become distant, spends most of her time with her own family in Cebu, and comes back to the condo only occasionally. He has serious health issues that his savings can no longer cover, and he does not have private insurance because he was priced out of it at 70. His children back at home have not been out to see him for 8 years. He's no house to go back to. He's no meaningful savings left. He cannot afford Manila private hospital rates, so he's stuck. And I want to be clear about something. He is not stupid, not weak. He's not a bad husband or a bad father or a bad person. He's somebody who made a set of decisions in his late 50s that seemed reasonable at the time, that were consistent with what most of the expat community seemed to be doing, and that have compounded, one after the other, into a trap he now cannot escape from. And there are, on my honest count, thousands and thousands of men in his exact situation in the Philippines right now, and thousands more who are on the same trajectory, but who have not yet reached the point of no return. Let me walk you through the anatomy of the trap, because it doesn't spring in one movement. It closes gradually over years, and each individual step feels reasonable at the time. That's why it works. If it were obvious, people wouldn't walk into it. But it's not obvious. It's a sequence of small commitments, each one made on the basis of the previous one, and each one narrowing the exit options a little further, until one day the man wakes up and realizes there is no exit left. The first step is the arrival. He goes out on a tourist trip in his mid-50s, falls in love with the weather, the pace of life, the friendliness, the sense that his money goes a lot further, and the specific attention that Filipino women pay to Western men in their 50s. He goes home, thinks about it for 6 months, and comes back on a longer visit. On that second trip, he meets somebody, maybe online, maybe at a bar, maybe through a friend of a friend. She's 25 years younger than him. She's beautiful, very attentive. She seems to genuinely enjoy his company. And after a few weeks, when he flies home, they stay in touch on Facebook, and he begins sending small amounts of money to help her with things. The second step is the commitment to move. He tells his friends and family back home that he's planning to relocate. He sells a house or rents it out. He liquidates his non-pension savings into a single account. He books a one-way ticket, and he arrives in the Philippines with a lump sum, monthly pension flow, and 58 years old body that still feels like it can do what it's doing. The country welcomes him. The Filipina welcomes him. Life's good. Life is genuinely good for a while. The The third step is the wedding, or the informal equivalent. He marries her, or he moves her in, or they set up house together in some form that in Filipino culture amounts to a full commitment. The family obligations are taken on, the extended relatives start appearing in his life. Some of them are lovely. Some of them start asking for things quite quickly. Small things at first, things we've all heard countless times before. A motorbike for the nephew, medical bills for the mother, school fees for a cousin. The amounts are individually small. He can afford them. He wants to be generous. He wants to be part of the family. And every single individual request considered on its own is reasonable. The fourth step is the property decision. This is the pivotal one. She wants a house. She wants stability for herself and the children. He wants to make her happy. The rules for foreign property ownership in the Philippines, as we know, are complicated. But he's told by everyone, including the local lawyer, that the sensible solution is to put the house in her name. He goes along with it because he loves her and because everyone assures him that that's how it's done. The house is bought, his name is not on the title, and from that moment on, the largest single asset he has in the country is not legally his. The fifth step is burning of the bridges back home. He sells the last of his UK or Australian or American property holdings. He collapses his non-pension savings into the household. He stops paying into the home country's health insurance system because he's not there to use it. He stops maintaining his professional network because he's retired. He stops seeing his friends because they are thousands of miles away and the flights are getting harder. His children back home get on with their lives, marry, have children of their own who do not really know Grandad because he's in the Philippines. Every one of these disconnections is normal, is what any long-term expat experiences, and none of them look catastrophic at the time, but they compound, and by the time he's 65, the options of going home has become genuinely difficult in a way it was not at 60. The sixth step is the financial drift. His pension flow does not increase in real terms. The family financial obligations grow every year. Inflation in the Philippines runs faster than his cost of living projections assumed. The peso strengthens or weakens in ways he cannot predict. Small emergencies come up, a hospital bill for one of the wife's relatives, a repair on the house he doesn't own, a car that needed replacing, a business venture the wife's brother wanted him to invest in that did not work out. None of these individual events is catastrophic, but collectively they eat into his savings faster than his pension replenishes them. And by year 7 or 8 of the marriage, the lump sum he arrived with is materially smaller than it was. And he's running the numbers in his head at night and not liking the answers. The seventh step is the health event. Somewhere in his late 60s or early 70s, something goes wrong. A cancer diagnosis, a heart problem, a serious fall, something that requires proper private hospital care in a country where the public system is not available to him. The bill comes in at hundreds of thousands of pesos, sometimes millions. He pays it because he's got no choice, but that single event takes a huge chunk out of what's left of his savings, and now the arithmetic is genuinely tight. He's not broke, but he's on the trajectory that will make him broke within 5 to 7 years at his current burn rate, and there is no reversal in sight. The eighth step is the emotional deterioration of the marriage. The wife is now in her mid-40s, her own life has moved on, her children are older, some of them with adult children of their own. Her extended family situation is complicated. The husband is now visibly aging, is dealing with the health issues, is less fun to be around, and is no longer the source of casual disposable income he used to be, because he's now spending most of his pension on hospital follow-ups and reduced quality of life adjustments. The wife's attention starts to drift, not necessarily to another man, although sometimes that is true to be the case, but to her own family, her own future, her next chapter, and he starts to feel like the household he's paying for is not really his household anymore. And then the ninth step, which is the one that traps him. He looks at his options and realizes he has none. He cannot go home because he has no home to go home to. His pension does not stretch to European or American rent, and he's been out of his home country for so long that his medical system does not fully cover him anymore. He cannot afford to leave the Philippines but keep his current lifestyle. He cannot afford to divorce, and couldn't legally anyway, because property is in her name and the family courts are structured against him. He cannot afford to keep going indefinitely because his savings are depleting. So he stays and he grinds down and he watches the situation get worse, and he tells himself that things will work out because there is no other story he can tell himself that lets him get up in the morning. That's the trap. And I've seen it so many times in so many variations that I can tell you it's not an accident of individual bad luck. It's a specific pattern that the country produces, because the country is structured in a way that makes it easy for a foreign man to walk in with a lump sum of money and a pension flow, and hard for that same man to walk out with any of it intact once he's committed. Let me tell you what you need to do differently, because if you are watching this and any of the above is starting to feel a little bit close to home, you've more room to move than the 72-year-old man I described earlier. You've not yet closed the exits. You still can, but you have to be honest with yourself about what you're doing, and you have to take some specific decisions that most of the expat content space will not tell you to take. Do not sell the house back at home. Rent it out. Keep the anchor asset in a jurisdiction whose legal system protects you. Do not liquidate your non-pension savings into the Philippines. Keep them in your home country, in your name, in an account that only you control. Do not put property in your Filipino partner's name that you cannot afford to lose. If you buy a condo, put it in your own name within the foreign quota. If you buy landed property, understand you can't own it, that the arrangement will not survive the marriage ending, and that you should treat any money you put in as money you have given away. Do not stop paying into your home country's healthcare system if you're able to, if there's any way to keep it going. The moment you drop it is the moment your options at 17 narrow to almost nothing. Do not become the sole financial support for an extended Filipino family. Contribute if you want to, be generous where you can, but do not let the family finances become dependent on you to a point where you cannot walk away. Do not marry in the first 18 months. Do not marry in the first 3 years. The pattern of the trap is that the biggest commitments get made in the honeymoon phase, when the man is most emotionally invested and least able to assess what he is committing to. And do not, under any circumstances, arrive in the Philippines with the belief that this is where you are going to spend the rest of your life. Arrive with the belief that this is somewhere you are going to try for 5 years, and that you will reassess seriously at year 5 with the option of leaving fully preserved. Because the men who arrive with the rest of my life belief are the men who make the decisions that close the exits. The men who arrive with the 5-year trial belief are the men who keep the exits open. I've watched too many men fail to keep the exits open. I'm telling you now, before you become one of them, that the exits close quietly, one at a time, over a decade, and that by the time you notice they are closed, you cannot open them again. So keep them open while you can. Because the alternative is the 72-year-old man in the Manila condo with the wife who doesn't come home and the arithmetic that no longer works. And nobody, 20 years earlier, ever thinks it's going to be him. But for enough of them, it is. Thanks everyone for tuning in to today's deep dive. I do appreciate it. Also, thanks for everyone who's helped me get to the 1,000 subscribers, onwards and upwards on this channel from here. Cheers, catch you in the next one, and bye for now.